Okay, yeah. So, what do we start a lesson with? So, what are your ideas? What do we start, better said, preparation for the lesson with? What do we start?
With targeting.
With targeting,
we have to find out the
I heard it. Okay. Does anyone have any other opinions?
No.
So, look, yes, the course book answer is with targeting, with setting the aims, but practice shows that very often, before we set the target, before we set the aim, we look at the material. So there can be like two approaches. The material, which we're working with, and we look at it and think of the aims. Or we think of our students' needs, and after that we choose the material. So the best thing is to look at your students' needs, but we know that within schools we have course books to follow, so on and so forth. Today we're going to deal with lesson aims. Raise your hands, those who have ever had any like training or any seminar or who has read any article about how to set aims.
Well, we can use smart goals, or I don't know.
Okay. So this means that you've heard or read something, right?
Well, a little bit.
Good. Is there anyone else who knows something about the principles of how to set aims? No, no one else. Only Olga. Olga, you will help me today. But please, Olga, before you tell everyone else the answer, make sure that you gave them a chance to think themselves. Okay?
Okay.
So, first of all,
going to be a little bit about the SMART system?
Not now.
No, not only.
I will
later.
be guiding. So, I need to share screen.
Hello again, sorry.
Hello, Zarana.
Zarana is back. Very good. Okay.
My video.
Look, I remember that I can show one Word document and I can hide the other one. Is that right? I have two here, and one of them I want to show you, and the other I don't. Is that possible or not?
Yes, should be possible.
Okay.
But how?
But here I can see only one, unfortunately, and I'm not sure what I should do. Okay. Then I'll do it like this. Give me a second. I'll create a Google Doc and I'll share the Google Doc with you, and you will not see my document on my computer. Come on. It's loading. Well, while I'm doing that, please, everybody, think about the following question. If we think about lesson aims, what should your lesson aim or learning objective be like? So first, I'd like you to think a little and take a piece of paper or anything and write your thoughts, like write a sentence. My lesson aim should be, and you need to continue this way. My computer is somehow slow today, wouldn't create a document. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, I can't create a document, can you imagine?
It happens sometimes, don't worry. You can use the one which you have already prepared.
Yes, but they can't share it separately. And they want to be able to share one document, and they want you not to see the other one with the answers.
Close one, show just one, and then you'll show the other one.
Closing the... It will take time.
Impossible. Okay.
Okay, good. So while I'm struggling with my speed or whatever the problem is, so what are your sentences? I'd like to hear everyone. Everyone, please tell me your ideas. Who's ready?
I wrote in the chat, they can be short, achievable, and measurable.
Short. Okay, I see.
I just wanted to continue and add, following the SMART tendency, it's just as specific when you know exactly what you're going to do, then if I'm not mistaken, it's measurable.
Just a second, Olga, I'm not sure that everyone understands what you're talking to do, what you're talking about, SM, right? So that's why I want to hear everyone else first, okay? So short, achievable, and measurable. More ideas?
Aims should meet students' needs, their requirements.
Sorry?
They should meet requirements.
What kind of requirements?
Yeah. So
what kind of requirements?
We should listen to our student, what he or she wants to study. So, and according to this, we have to set our aims in the lesson.
Do I hear you right that your aim should meet the student's needs?
Yeah, right.
Okay, I'll put it in chat. Meet the student's needs. Okay, what else? More ideas? More ideas from people? There are several people here, not just 3. I heard something from Ola. I heard something from another Ola, or the same Ola. And more.
I've just joined because that's why I didn't get the idea. You are talking about aims, so they're achievable, short, precise, clear for our students.
Very good. Okay, I like that. More. I heard from Irina, I heard from Yulia. How about Zariana, Helen, and Ola? Ola probably.
I agree with all aims.
Okay, you agree. But look, Zariana, when you agree, it's very good, but it doesn't help you develop. So you need to try and produce some of your ideas. So not only agree, but also think yourself, okay? Well, good. I'm ready with the document I wanted to share. Now I'll try again to do that. I think it will be better.
I've got a question. Can we share some picture in the chat? Does anybody know? Because I wanted to share, instead of typing, just to send a picture. Does anybody know how to do it?
I believe we can't.
Probably not now, because this way I can't control what you're showing. Because look, what I've just told to Zariana was that I want you to use your brain. I want you to think, and if we see all the answers immediately, then you will not have a chance to think. Okay, good. So. Collected your ideas. I already see that you're very close, but what Olga said was actually this. She said,
and Girls, can you see? Oh, okay.
Okay. So she said that your aim should be smart. And this is absolutely right. Probably I'll write it here. I'll get a copy. So, okay. Your lesson aim or your learning objective, because if it's a lesson, somebody will learn something, right? It should be smart. And here, you need to think what each letter stands for. I see that Olga knows the answers, and she will give us the answers in a minute. But before that, I want to hear everyone else.
S.
So, S, what does it stand for? Any ideas?
I think it's specific, maybe.
Specific. More ideas. More ideas?
Suitable.
Suitable. That's a very good characteristic.
Student-oriented.
Student-oriented. Good. More?
Specific.
Special, serious, small.
Special, serious, small. Okay. In fact, you were right. The first S stands for specific. Okay, all right. Specific. And we're going to get to what it means a little bit later, to what exactly it means. But what I heard from you was brilliant, really student-oriented, short. Yes, that's very good. Okay, next. M, what does it stand for?
Measurable, I have no other word.
I guess some people know that it's measurable, and yes, that's right, it's measurable. Wait. Measurable.
Can I add something here?
Yes, you can. To measurable.
When I was studying this, like smart description for me was not clear. I know pretty well what is measurable, but how we can measure students' goals was a difficult thing to understand. So maybe ladies want to discuss it in detail. So
yeah, we're going to discuss it right after we understand what these letters stand for. Okay, next. A, what does it stand for? Any ideas?
Appropriate.
More?
Accurate.
Good. Actual, very good. Okay, I like. I like it. Actual, like important for the student now, right? Okay, more.
Advanced.
Advanced. Okay, if we are speaking of advanced students, more.
Like aim, I mean, for all students.
Like maybe advancing students further in their level, right? I see. Yeah. Okay, more.
Appropriate.
Appropriate. Good. Once again, I like your ideas because they're really focused on the student and student needs. But in fact, A stands for achievable or attainable, which is actually the same. Okay, good. R, what does R stand for?
Reasonable.
Yeah.
Very
realistic.
Good. Realistic, okay, more?
Relevant.
Great.
Rational.
Rational, okay. Relevant, rational, realistic. In fact, I'm listening to you and I guess that they all mean a very similar thing. But in the original version, yes, it's realistic. But reasonable is also brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I think that perhaps it even shows the idea better. Okay, good. T, what does T stand for?
Time bound. So you should know exactly how much time you have for that.
Okay. More ideas?
And I was confusing actually time bound with measurable ones. I thought if you measure it in time, but time bound goes at the end. Measure
We're going to try and clarify.
How many things you're going to learn.
Okay. Does anyone have any other ideas? Okay.
3
well,
minutes.
That's the right answer. Time-bound. Time-bound, or some people put it as time-appropriate, which is once again the same. Sorry. Time-appropriate. Very good. So now I'd like you all to think about the meaning of these words. As far as I know, this characteristic of an aim refers to any aim you set, any aim in your life, in your professional development, not only to your lesson aim, but in the context of teaching students. What does this SMART, this specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound mean? Give yourself a minute to think, and then we'll discuss. Who said that? Who's tired or bored? I can't see you all together, sorry. I can't hear. Let's get together and start. Specific. What do you think it might mean? In terms of learning.
So you have to think clearly about your aims.
Irina, I guess we have a problem with your microphone because we can hear only parts of your words. Can you do something about it? Maybe use a headset or something. Or maybe get closer.
Okay. I'll try to get
can you repeat, please?
They should be clear, specific. The aims should be clear.
To me, there is a difference between clear and specific. What do you think it might be?
Is there a difference? Yeah.
I feel there is.
Can I add?
Maybe. I need to think about it.
Okay. Olga.
So the example is the following. You can set the goal to make students cleverer, but it's not specific. It's just clever in what area, and you cannot measure it exactly. And you can set the goal to just to study some particular topic with them, to drill some particular skills, like to train comparatives. That's the exact goal. And you can make them clever in terms of that, but if you just say cleverer, and that's just very wide area, so it's not specific. But if you specify, so that's, you are saying, you clarify it for them, you make it clear. So you say, today we're going to do this and that for you to know. And so you clarify, you make it clear for them, but the goal is specific, like you're training this this exact goal.
Okay, yeah, so a synonym would probably be narrow. For example, if I say that today my students will learn to use present perfect, is this aim specific?
No. I think.
Why not? What's wrong?
Because we can subdivide this topic into several sides. So how to form perfect, then how to use, which words we use with this tense, like that. So we can subdivide and make it more specific.
But if they are already intermediate, you can just say, today we're going to practice with the present perfect. So it can be specific depending on the situation.
Yeah.
But you can subdivide for elementary, but still you will say, we will learn how to make statements in present perfect for pre-intermediate, okay? More specific than specific and more specific, Irina.
You're right that there is a difference between lower levels and upper levels. But I wouldn't say to my students that today we are going to practice present perfect.
And how would you say the following question? You're actually...
Well, I personally, in my style, I wouldn't say anything about the grammar. I would say about the context. because today our topic is aim comes first. It's for the teacher, but for the student, context comes first.
So we don't specify goals for students.
Well, you may if you want. There are students who, there are teachers who choose to do that, but well, make sure you understand why and make sure you can be flexible after that.
Well, can I add here? I just, to my mind, it's important to specify for students what you're doing and what for you're doing, what for you're studying something. So setting aims for them is also important. And before starting any lesson, no matter what level is my student, I'm telling him, we will practice this because in real life situation, you will need it here or there. So, or I give the situation first and then explain why we're doing that.
Yeah.
They are adults and it helps to motivate them.
Yes, so yes, okay. I didn't say that it's wrong. If you remember, I said that I, as a teacher, like in my style, I choose not to do that. If you choose to do that, well...
It just...
Can
it's their motivation. If you work with adults, they have to know
Olga, I'm sorry, Julia wants to see that, to say something. Okay.
So we set our own aim, and we can say that it's, for example, to use present simple to be able to speak about your everyday activities. So we can say like that. So our task is not to tell them that they are going to practice some forms or meaning or pronunciation. Our task is to allow students to integrate target language into their life, into their everyday language.
Yes, absolutely. And it should be narrow or specific enough. Like not to learn everything within one lesson, but to learn an aspect within my one lesson. Okay, good. Next, measurable. We know that Olga had trouble understanding this point. Let's see what the others think. What does it mean that your aim is measurable? I see someone shrugging their shoulders.
Yeah, I'm shrugging.
Yeah,
Olga, I support you in that. I don't understand it.
How about
if we speak about aims, yes, not about words.
Okay, so I haven't heard anything from Natalia or Zarina at all. Are you with us?
In my opinion, measurable can depend on aim, of course, but if we talk about, for example, vocabulary, well, we have a topic, for example, for a lesson, and, for example, aim comes first, our topic for today. And we take some vocabulary, if we talk about lesson, and we know how many words we should remember, to learn, memorize, I don't know, and we can measure how many words, for example, we need to remember.
Okay, good. I actually like this idea. Remember that, and I want to hear from others. Quiet. Well,
Can I give the example? Yeah, how I clarified it for my own, if everybody has already said. So you can measure it, as Ren has named. If you speak about vocabulary, it's clear. Then if you speak about some structures, you set the goal today. For example, if I understood you correctly, you said that you don't like aiming, like we're going to study present perfect. And it reminded me about life experience in aviation sphere. If you teach in aviation, some specific sphere, they say no grammar at all. And aviators or adults,
just a second, we're talking about measurable.
So you can measure, you can measure just the specific structure. You don't say them, I wanted to combine, you don't say them, we are going to study present perfect. You say, we will practice with you structure have done or has done. And at the end, how you can measure whether this person can use have or has done. And it's already, if at the end of the class, he or she is able to do it, it's perfect. So you achieved your aim.
Okay, good. Let's put what Olga said and what Zarina said together. So Zarina said that you know that together with your students, you're going to learn 10 words today, for example. Well, we are speaking about some general student, imaginary student. And Olga said that at the end of the lesson, you see that they can use it, right? So measurable means that in your lesson, you are putting something, some activity, or some result, which at the end of the lesson will show that your students can do what you've taught them.
Okay, so we can track somehow progress.
Exactly, yes. Measurable means that there is something, a certain dialogue, or a text, or a skill, for example, when they listen and you see that they actually do the task, they're able to answer this question. And this is how you can measure. So when planning a lesson and when setting the goal, you need to keep that in mind, that there should be something which at the end of the lesson will show that your students have learned. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Next, achievable or attainable. First, by who?
Maybe by both the teacher and the student. Whether a teacher has like the correct materials, to use, whether he can actually teach the topic, and whether the student is on the level where he can accept the information from the teacher.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The first part of what you said is important, but here in learning objectives, the student is important. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's the second part. It's whether the student is at the right level for this aim. So when you're setting the aim, for example, you have a beginner student and you want that they are able to use present perfect continuous by the end of the lesson. Haha, it's funny. It's definitely not achievable. Or it's a 9-year-old child and you want them to produce, I don't know, a formal letter by the end of the lesson. Once again, haha, this will never happen. Mm-hmm. And not because the student is stupid, but because your aim is not achievable. Because of the student's level, the student's age, the student's like physical ability or life experience. Mm-hmm. So you need to keep that all in mind. Next, realistic.
And what's the difference then?
Between what?
Between achievable and realistic.
There is a great
examples with children and beginner students.
Okay, just a second. Somebody said reasonable, and I said that I like that word, perhaps even better than realistic. Let's think about it together.
That we do not have too many goals at the same time.
Realistic and achievable are very close in the meaning. Just achievable, you're speaking about their abilities to do it, as we had an example. And realistic, whether it's real in terms of time, whether it's real in terms of different. Yeah. So it's just, they are very close in it, but have slight difference.
I wouldn't say so. Mm-hmm. Of course, I know the answers and I'll tell you later, but first I want to hear from you. Anyone? Mm-hmm. If we think of other contexts of the word realistic, which other contexts can we use it in apart from like achievable and attainable? What does this word mean?
Synonym for achievable and attainable.
No.
It's relevant also. Like relevant.
I like the word relevant. I like the word reasonable. Yes. Mm-hmm. So let's think about this aspect.
Sometimes they say in English when they write this smart, it's more relevant than realistic, because realistic is like achievable, attainable. But R stands also for relevant.
No. That's the difference.
It stands for relevant.
Okay, and what does it mean relevant? Yeah, so realistic or relevant?
So maybe when we plan a lot to do a lot during the lesson, and we want to do this and that and that, but we have to be realistic and to understand what our students can do. So to make it realistic for our students to achieve this aim, or there is no any sense to have this lesson at all if they don't see the results, if they don't meet outcomes.
What you're saying is totally right, but in fact, you are confusing the same things as Olga. In your version, realistic is the same as achievable and attainable, but they are different. Remember, I told you about the 9-year-old boy who, because of the teacher's choice, has to write a formal letter by the end of the lesson. This is totally unrealistic. Why? What's wrong with it exactly?
He has a lack of experience.
That's one aspect. What?
He can't use this in his real life. He doesn't need this. He doesn't need.
Bravo. That is the answer. Realistic really refers to how necessary this topic is for your students. So this 9-year-old boy, as Irina said, doesn't need it, at least now, maybe later, in about 5 years. 5 or even 6 years.
So it's relevant. It stands more for relevant. In order for us not to confuse, and very often they, when explaining what each letter stands for, they write down sometimes realistic, but more they write relevant.
Oh, I've never heard that really. That's the first time
I've just checked in Google.
Okay. So I've taken several courses and always it's been realistic, and that's the first time. Thanks. Maybe I will replace it in the seminars I give. Okay. So yes, relevant to the student's life, realistic.
And relevant to the situation can also be at the lesson. If you're studying this topic, something is relevant, something just is inappropriate for it in the context.
Yeah. So if it's like you said, someone mentioned pilots, right? Pilots who were...
I used to teach pilots, aviators, not only them.
Yeah, aviators or pilots, yes. So and if you teach them vocabulary for cooking food, well, how realistic is it?
Yeah.
Useless.
So it's not what they actually
relevant.
Well, probably it is in their real life, but only if they have this hobby and well, not in the course for pilot. Okay, good. And the last one, time-bound or time-appropriate. What about it? Any ideas? Natalia is an observer. You're good as an observer, but I'd like you to participate. Okay. Anyone? Time-bound, time-appropriate.
Whether you can achieve the aim within the boundaries, time boundaries of the lesson. You can plan the activities by minutes.
This one appears to be the easiest, right? So like, for example, if you have elementary students and you want, and they've just learned past simple, and you want them to learn present perfect just yet already. Will you be able to make them do that within one lesson? Yes or no?
One more time, could you please repeat the situation?
You have elementary students, they just learned past simple, like positive, negative questions, all sorts of things, regular, irregular. And your next like material, the next thing you want to work on is present perfect, yet just already. Will they be able to learn to use that within one lesson?
Well, no, it depends, of course, on the level, but it takes time. Depends on the situation.
So one lesson, elementary students who have never seen present perfect. Yes, no?
That's not enough.
No,
not enough. Why not? Why not? What do you need to do first?
Present perfect, structures.
Present perfect structures, what else? At least one more lesson.
The difference between past simple, present perfect, I don't know what.
Okay, and at least one more lesson. And irregular verbs, like past participle of irregular verbs.
If you just thought, sure.
Yeah. So at least for this, you will need at least 3 lessons.
Minimum.
Right? So 1 lesson is not enough. Okay, so this is what time bound means. Very good. Okay. We're going on, and I'm going to show you a couple of examples of sorry, before that, there is something to show you. The classical aim in formal training looks like this, like the beginning of this aim looks like this. And it's called swobod. Look at these letters, and maybe somebody knows what this means, this swobod.
I know I've seen it, but I forgot.
Okay, let's remember together.
Can you give a hint? What is it about?
About a learning objective or the aim of your lesson. This is the way you start every lesson aim.
Are these nouns? Are they supposed to be nouns or adjectives?
It's at the beginning of a sentence. Okay, yeah. I will just show you. So, swobod means that students will be able to. If you look at this beginning, what do you notice about it? What very important principle lies behind it? What do you think about? Who do you think about when you set your aims?
We have student-centered learning, so of course we're thinking about students and their needs. So priorly, what they need English for, and then if you know whether it's for business, whether it's for moving abroad, what country they're going to, what accent they need, and what sphere they're going to work at. So depending on that, you start your work and learn specifically what they need, and then they study quicker. They're more motivated if you're giving them exactly what they need, not just start from the basics or according to the books.
Just a second, but we're not talking about the whole learning process today, but only this aspect. I'm sorry, I need to close the window. There's a stadium near my home, and there's football. Should be quiet now. Okay, good, yes. So the focus is on student. Olga is absolutely right. And when you set the aim, remember this measurable thing. And this phrase, students will be able to, helps you to never leave this measurable aside. Because if you start your aim with this phrase, you will always think about what ability, what skill your students will show at the end. You can't avoid it. No way. So students, not teacher. Okay. And now there are 4 aims I want to show you. Of course, they all start with swobod. Just a second. Oi, what happened? Something happened. Well, I don't know why they had to be together, but they are. Okay. So there are 4 aims here. Apart from swobod, they all have something in common. I'd like you to look at them and tell me what that is.
Can you make it bigger a little bit, because it makes it difficult to read?
Yes, okay.
Thank you for that.
I will try. Is that enough?
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. ideas?
They are all polite.
I think they're all realistic, meaning that they will be used in real life. Students will need to talk about past events, make polite requests. All of these are important, so they are.
If we think about these aims as a formula, what exactly makes you feel that they are realistic? We are teachers, but we can't go away from mathematics. And these are formulas which begin, which swap it, and then something else goes. A very structured thing. What makes this aim
able to do something using something else? That's like the basic
exactly.
formula.
Yes.
So they're specified, kind of.
Absolutely. What exactly realistic situation your students are going to be able to do, to participate in or to cope with? And then you said using what exactly, but what exactly? What kind of things are listed here?
Grammar structures.
What else?
The context. And the vocabulary.
For example, yes. If you're talking about like pronunciation, so probably there will be a list of words or phrases, like when it's functional language, like you would train the pronunciation of the whole phrase, like I couldn't agree more, for example, right? You would do that. And then you would add a list of phrases there for pronunciation. Okay, this is like the principle, the main principle. So if we write the formula of a lesson aim, I'll put it like lesson aim formula. Help me, please. What shall I put here? What goes first?
SWOT.
Words,
SWOT.
okay, which words? Do you mean SWOT? Students will be able to,
SWOT.
People say SWOT, but I don't know why somebody invented it. So students will be able to, yes, that's the first thing. What's the next thing?
Target language.
No, sorry.
Realistic goal.
Okay,
realistic
I would say realistic situation. Right? We say talk about past events, make polite requests. I personally would even add where, like make polite requests at a restaurant or in a school with your peers. I would specify even more. These are not my aims, so I would make it even more specific for my convenience. But okay, the authors opted for more general ones. Okay, realistic situation or a skill. Which is a skill out of these four aims?
Polite request, I think.
Yes, you're right. But for me, it's together skill and realistic situation, but which is like clearly a skill.
So speaking lesson. If it is speaking lesson, so it will be skills. And
can you repeat, please?
if it is speaking lesson, I mean, if it is language system like speaking here, so productive skill speaking, so it can be like a skill to.
Yes, you're right, but I was asking about these four. Look.
Maybe the last one. Because it doesn't come naturally to us, we have to learn this.
Yes, and it's not a description of a situation. It's definitely a skill which you're going to use in numerous situations, right? So, but it's realistic. You need this if you want to read and understand something. Okay, realistic situation or skill, and then what goes first? What goes next?
Target language, no?
Target language, exactly. Yes. Now, Yulia, it's what you said first. Yes. Now it's
so can we use it vice versa? For example, by the end of the lesson, our students should be able to use the present perfect simple to talk about past events with present results. We can use it like vice versa.
Look, in fact, if they're both included in the aim, some people would say that there's nothing wrong about it, but I believe that it should be this way, and I have my reasons. Who can understand what exactly my reasons are? Why do I agree with those who claim that the situation should go? Or skills?
Because I think there are 4 main skills that we are teaching: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Grammar is not one of them. Grammar is like helping us, to helping students to do it correctly. But the main 4 skills are those 4. So that's why I also believe this should go first.
Yes. Because now we have different types of the lesson. It can be language system, or it can be skill lesson. For example, productive skill lesson or receptive skill lesson. So it is not about that, I guess.
Well, if it's a productive skill lesson, then your students will definitely produce something. For example, a text, which is a realistic situation. They will never ever, not even in any exam, produce a text which is not close to life. So I'll tell you, in all this methodology, in the communicative methodology, target language or the material you're using doesn't come first. The context always comes first. Like it's more important than the grammar. It's the first aspect. And then if, for example, you want me to make polite requests, yes, like to come up to someone in a library and ask them for some help, whatever I need, a pen or whatever else, right? Or in a language school library in London, right? I'm doing something and my pen is broken, for example. I need to come up to someone and ask them for a pen. How many ways to do that can you imagine? To ask for a pen. For example, today we're learning this "would you mind?" How many more other ways to ask for a pen can you imagine?
Ask what? I'm sorry. Can you repeat, please?
Closer to the micro, please. Continue.
To ask what? Can you repeat? What to ask for?
Ask for a pen, because mine...
ask for a pen? How many other ways?
Yeah. So there today...
No, there are some other ways, of course. Like,
for example, give me 2. Can I have a pen, please? Okay, can I have a pen, please? Okay, Mo?
Can I borrow?
Would you give me a pen, please?
Okay. So, look, if by the end of your lesson, your students are able to come up to someone, well, you're role-playing this situation, they're able to come up to someone and they say something different from "would you mind?" Would you say that your students cannot do what you're teaching them? Would you say that they haven't learned to make polite requests?
It means that you haven't achieved your aim, because by the end of the lesson they should be able to use this structure to make.
Okay, perhaps my example was like quite narrow. I see what you mean. Normally it's a bit bigger, yes, and you would ask like 3 people, for example. And if at least one of the ways you use is "would you mind?" and the other 5 are some others, it's okay. Because the idea is that your students are able to make polite requests. And the instrument they use is their choice. So if they weren't able to use "would you mind?", well, it's their choice. So this means that at the end of the lesson, when you finish, before you say goodbye, you just say, yes, so you used this, 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 and this. And this, one more. Which is it? And they say, would you mind? They were coping with the situation. They just forgot this thing which you taught them. But it doesn't mean that they didn't cope with the situation. Situation comes first.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, Yulia, I think I understand what you're worried about. Some students only learn to use the target language, not the language which they're used to using, only after a series of lessons and after a series of reminders.
Yeah, I do agree that during free practice, it is usually at the end of the lesson, they have to show us that they can use target language. And our task is not to tell them, so you have to do this to tell me about this, using target language. Our task is to give them situation and to see if they can use it or not.
Yes, and if they can't, well, this only means that you need to remind. Well, you need to remind after they finished, and well, next time they will remember, hopefully. And if you see that it wasn't enough, well, okay, what I as a teacher can do, maybe at the next lesson we'll do that again. And after a reminder, they'll probably use it at least once, which is actually enough.
Yeah.
Have I answered? Have I clarified this principle to you? Yulia, I was talking to you. Yeah, okay, better. So yes, some think that it doesn't matter which order, this should all be included. But there are others who insist on this order because in communicative method, communicative situation goes first, language goes second. Okay, and to finish, I've got a couple of bad aims. I'd like you to look at them and tell me what's wrong about them. Why are they so bad? Wait, sorry, probably. Oh, okay. These aims are bad. Why?
If you just say students will do a role play, I'll start from the end. Role play for what? What kind of context? And what's the aim of that role play? To be able to use the language in the particular real life situation. So setting the aim like role play, it's the aim not of, well, the aim is the other. It's not actually the aim, just the task.
It's a stage of the lesson.
Yes,
role
just
play.
the task.
Role play is a method we use to teach something, but here it's not clear what we are teaching.
Yeah, you're totally right. Role play is just an instrument, a task, a part of the lesson, but it's not a realistic situation. Role play, okay, but what? Okay, good. There are two more. Let's talk about them.
There are no situations there. Communicative approach. To teach the present continuous for what? Why do we need to know it is present continuous? There is no situation.
Yeah, like why? Present continuous for what? To take a test?
Or to speak about future.
Yeah. Well,
sure.
The same with tech questions. Well, at first it seems to be fine, like a setting aim to teach them how to do it. But if you want to have more specific aim in context, in which kind of situation you're going to practice that, in the context of what topic? So it would be more specific, but in general it can be, but should be specified, and what for, and in which situation, in which content,
which
context.
Which exactly example are you talking about? The first,
I'm speaking about tech questions now, about the second one, about the present continuous. We already mentioned that present continuous can be used for future, for present, for different targets, so it should be clarified. But to the second one, tech questions, well, seem to be specific, seems to be precise, but not very exact. And what for, you can add here to specify, to clarify for yourself and
so it's
for the students. The
simply
content,
put, it's not specific.
Yeah.
It's absolutely not specific. And let's make them better, okay?
Okay,
so
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can I interrupt you? I'm sorry, I need to go. I have a lesson. So
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah,
Helen, we're glad to see you.
We're finishing, yes. Mm-hmm. You will be able to hear the result. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Yes, thank you. Bye-bye. Mm-hmm.
Bye, Helen.
Bye.
Mm-hmm. So let's make the first one better.
For example, to teach the present continuous in the meaning of future. In terms of future, like I'm visiting the doctor tomorrow, I am doing something, like if you're for planned actions, just if you speak about future.
To describe current activity. Yeah,
or just exactly.
Yeah, so what Olga said could be one lesson, what Ola said could be a different lesson, but still to teach the present continuous, to talk about your future plans and arrangements, it's still a bad aim. There's still something terribly wrong with it. What is it?
First, you should specify future events and then using present continuous, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is something which could be improved in this aim, but this is not what I would call terribly wrong.
So tell us what is terribly wrong.
By the end of the lesson, our students should be able to speak about their future plans using the present continuous.
Mm-hmm. Yula made it perfect. What did she do? What exactly did she change?
Not teach. We don't use teach.
The word order. She said you should be able to use it.
Olga, please listen to Yula. She's just said what she's done. Can you repeat this?
I didn't use the word teach.
Mm-hmm. What did you say instead?
The students will be able.
Mm-hmm. So it's a complete change of focus. Absolutely. And then in the article where I actually took this example from, they say, well, if you say my aim is to teach, so I could as well put a bunch of teddy bears, put them in front of me and teach them, right? And then I will say, my aim is achieved. But if you think about the student, that the students will be able to do that, then, well, you will need to measure your result. You see, it will be measurable. You will see that your students do that, or they don't, and then you'll have to repeat maybe more, do something.
Just change the focus of the lesson.
Yes, absolutely, and it's vital. It's vital with the aims. Mm-hmm. So the second one is
I was not focusing just on teaching, I was focusing on continuous already. To my mind, seems to be obvious, so even wouldn't think about that, but thanks for clarification. Just for me, goes without saying.
Very good, but when setting the aim, you see, we very often, and me too, sometimes I catch myself on that, we very often forget to change this focus, and then something happens in the lesson and we don't know what. So aim comes first. So first you need to set the aim, and after that you're ready to actually start thinking about what you're going to do in the lesson. All right?
Right, you are. But thanks God we are not... the system of in Sky Age, it's not that bureaucratic as it used to be at school, if somebody teaches at school or at the university, where you have to write down each aim. And there, yes, you're right to say that if you write down teach instead of students should be able to, would be very critical. But now we're just focused on there. For example, if you're preparing student for passing test at the end of the month, you know exactly he needs skills. So your aim cannot be just to teach, just to do your job. Otherwise, he will never hear, or other students will not come to you if you're just doing your job.
Yes, and I'm happy to hear that this has already become a skill. You don't need to think much about it, but you just do it. You just set the aim for your students to achieve. So when we were talking about this seminar, we actually realized that within one seminar, we will not be able both to analyze and practice. We practiced just a little bit. We looked at the structure and we looked at and we made these bad aims better. For your homework, every one of you, everyone who is going to participate in the next seminar, You need to choose 2 lessons, any lesson, any level, whatever you prefer. And you need to write a very smart aim. Your personal.
Lessons?
Huh?
For 2 lessons?
For 2 different lessons, yes. They can be connected or they can be like from different levels, different students, you choose. I just want you to try out setting these smart aims and try out including everything that's needed for this formula. I look at it as a mathematics. Okay. Is the homework clear?
Yeah. Sure.
Can you repeat it one more time? I'm sorry, can you? Because I had to go away, I didn't hear.
Yeah, and who's speaking?
It's Ola.
It's Ola. Okay. Yes, your homework is to take 2 lessons which can be connected or not connected from different levels or the same levels, like it's your choice, and prepare 2 very smart aims according to this formula, so to speak, right? This one. And at the next lesson, we're going to look at them, to look at your aims, analyze them, and hopefully they will be perfect, or maybe we'll have to see what we can improve.
Mm-hmm. 1 aim per lesson, right?
Yes, of course, yes, there is 1 aim per lesson, yes. There can be subsidiary aims, but now we are focusing on main aims. Do you have any questions?
I'd like just to say thank you for reminding us some important issues. What I do like, can I summarize a little bit what I do like most of all out of our lesson?
Well, you probably may if you want.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. So I'm thankful for reminding us about content, particularly me, about content-based training, that first of all, we focus on content, what we are teaching and what for. Then student-centered, it's SWOT, students should be able to. And what I also liked, I even wrote down at the beginning, just a second. Well, and for reminding us that aims go first, because it reminded me about one nice saying, you can't direct the wind, but you can adjust your sails. So if you are swimming like a boat in the sea, you will swim nowhere. But if you have aim, you know where you're going, and you can adjust your sails. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much for such a summary. That was a brilliant summary. Well, and I wish you all good luck in setting aims for every next lesson. And you will be able to demonstrate, I hope, so to demonstrate your skill at our next seminar. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ladies, I was glad to see you all.
Yes,
we are too. Me too. Bye-bye.
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 Okay. So